Just when we're getting ready to ramp up for the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament, we get blindsided with this.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host. This is Locked On West Virginia. Thanks for joining, guys. It's been a crazy weekend already, and now we've got even more news coming down the pike. But before we go there, this episode is going to be brought to you by Nissan. We like Nissan around here. Make sure that you check out a Nissan when you get near an auto ship dealer. Brought to you by the 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. And speaking of this episode, guys, it wouldn't be this episode without my special guest of the day, somebody that is super funny, one of the funniest guys I know. He hosts Locked On Oklahoma State, or Locked On Cowboys. I forget which one it is. Cody Stovall, what's up, brother?
I forget too, man. I have a hard time putting words together as it is. So, yeah, I'm just the guy that covers the Orange team. We'll leave it at that. I'm doing fantastic. A little bit better than Mountaineer Nation at the moment with the news of Darian DeVries potentially taking his talents elsewhere. And I don't know, man. I kind of feel for you because I think West Virginia has a phenomenal basketball squad. Obviously, Javon Small leaving Stillwater to head to Morgantown was a big deal for us. We knew it was going to be a massive loss. And as you look at this season, Oklahoma State's 12-3 at home. Our road record isn't that great, but if we would have had Javon Small, what would that look like? And then I know you guys have dealt with some things, right? When you have the individuals that you do, especially with Tucker DeVries involved, you have a Sweet 16 level talent, but you've dealt with a lot of stuff, and now you have this popping up.
Yeah, and speaking to what this is, so over the weekend, Darian DeVries' name started popping up in the Indiana coaching search. I got a phone call today from somebody I'll have on the show later that even confirmed this to a further extent. It's actually, there's some momentum behind this. But an article on the Indiana website, SB Nation, says, report Indiana men's basketball coaching search narrows. And it goes on to mention, I'm not going to read the whole article, but it says that this is per Jeff Goodman. Indiana has moved past the likes of Boston Celtics' Brad Stevens, Michigan's Dusty May, Iowa State's TJ Alterberger, Baylor's Scott Drew, and others. And now they're moving on to names like Brad Brownell, Ben McCollum, Chris Collins at Northwestern, Will Wade, Bart Byington, and Darian DeVries, apparently forever attached to the hip as they were side by side in the coaching search last year for a bunch of jobs. And look, I don't know, I personally believe that Darian DeVries is one of the most underrated coaches in the country. And what he's done this year is amazing. But I don't know if you can sell to the Indiana faithful who in basketball is a blue blood, right? Or they're either a blue blood or they're one notch below, depending on how you feel. 20 years ago, absolutely, we're a blue blood.
Yeah.
They've got the Bob Knight history. They've got all that. And how can you sell a guy who's got 1 year at the Power 4 level to Indiana, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the historical connotations behind Indiana. And yes, I think they are still to some degree classified as a blue blood, right? There's teams that are classified as blue bloods in football that haven't been winning in quite some time, yet they're still in that designation. So it is fair, in my opinion, to categorize Indiana as a blue blood. But at the same time, from what I've been able to establish, you guys were able to get him over a significant amount of suitors, even in the Big 12. I know Oklahoma State made a run. You just mentioned Dusty May, Ben McCollum. Those guys were all pretty much battling a bunch of different jobs together. And with the Rich Rod hire and the NIL collectives in Morgantown right now, I think that you guys have enough momentum that it would behoove him to stick around in Morgantown because that Press Virginia stuff, I know that was more of a Huggy Bear thing, but that was something that was absolutely amazing to watch. You didn't have to even be a massive fan of basketball, but that brand that West Virginia was playing was worth every single millisecond of view time. And I think if you have the collective capabilities, why not? Why not stick in West Virginia? Because Indiana, traditionally, blue blood, yes. Recently, not so much.
Right.
Like, even with Tom Crean, they were not the same Indiana, and they've kind of gone down since then. So other than potential financial compensation, I don't really see a massive benefit to going to Indiana over West Virginia.
I can see where you're going there, and I absolutely agree. I think not only that, you got Tucker DeVries coming back next year, coming off a third shoulder surgery.
Really?
Right? He will be back next year. And do you want to drag him into another first-year rebuild? I don't know. As to where this year with West Virginia, let's say, we know he's coming back. We know that 3 or 4 guys in the current roster is going to come back, and we're going to get into the next segment, the elite basketball classes that both Oklahoma State and West Virginia are putting together for next season. Just high school. That's not even counting portal. There's reasons for him to stay too. And I think that's going to be fun to talk about because let's be honest, man, West Virginia, although we are a football school, we're a basketball school too, very much like Oklahoma State in that, yeah, we love our football number one, but basketball ain't far behind.
Well, don't go. How dare you do that to me right now? Oklahoma State basketball, yes. When I was growing up, that was the hot ticket, not Oklahoma State football. Going to Oklahoma State football games were fun, but the big ticket was getting inside Gallagher-Iba Arena or going over to the baseball facilities. So it is troublesome for me to see Oklahoma State in the condition that it's in. But I just mentioned, under first-year head coach Steve Lutz, he did go 12-3 at home, and that was my number one thing coming into the season. I don't care what happens on the road. I legitimately said, I don't care if we go 0-14 on the road. Just turn Gallagher-Iba back into a place that nobody wants to come to. And I think he did that this year, even in a complete rebuild. So there's a lot of things for Steve Lutz to sell. But again, going back to Darian DeVries, I think that West Virginia has a lot of capabilities that are even unforeseen because of the injuries that you guys have had stack up throughout the course of the season. So I just and the Big Ten. The Big Ten compared to the Big 12 in basketball, it's not even really much of a conversation. If you wanted to say
outside
that the
of
SEC,
this year.
yes, this year the SEC's done very well. The Big Ten's done very well, but even some of that is very convoluted without a whole lot of evidentiary proof behind it. You know that some of this is being pushed up because of the TV networks, because of the conference affiliations. So the Big 12 is going to be viewed, in my personal opinion, as the top conference once again as the postseason plays out.
I agree too, and we should be. Just like it's like the SEC had a down year last year, right? But are they still not the top conference, at least viewed as that? I feel the same about the Big 12. We've had a down year by our standards, absolutely. Right. I mean, you can't argue against the 14-2 SEC against the Big 12. I mean, that's just unbelievable record against the Big 12 this year. I don't think it's going to continue to play out that way. I just think that the portal is even some things out, right?
It's March, bro. Everybody's here for one word, March Madness. And the beauty of the word madness is there's going to be chaos. There's going to be craziness. And I think we've got 5 teams, 6 teams potentially in the Big 12 that could make a legitimate push at a Sweet 16, Elite 8 conversation. And if it gets back to where it was a couple years ago, where we have half of the Final Four, at least Big 12 schools, then it changes that conversation, right? Nobody talks about the 14-2 SEC record. Nobody talks about all of the SEC juggernauts that have found their way at the top of college basketball this year. If there's only one SEC school in the Final Four, then this is a moot conversation. And I think it does add more value to the concept of keeping coaches in the conference that is known for college basketball. Especially, here's the last caveat, is we have Brett Yormark. Brett Yormark is a basketball guy. Brett Yormark was a basketball visionary before he got the job in the Big 12, and he has made no qualms about his idea behind building the basketball brand in the Big 12. Yeah. So you're never going to have a commissioner that supports basketball in any other conference like Brett Yormark.
That's true. And I was thinking about it earlier. What are the pros and cons to staying or leaving? And really, there aren't a whole lot more pros at Indiana than there are at West Virginia. It's really outside of, like you were talking about. I mean, you can say it like about Nebraska. Yeah, on the surface, Nebraska looks like a better job than a lot of places.
Right.
But is it really
but that's job? To us, bro. We're old as all get out. The younger generation, they don't remember the Bob Knight Indiana days.
Right.
They just don't. Like even recruits coming on campus at Oklahoma State.
They don't even remember the Texas Tech days of Bob Knight.
Recruits have to be reminded when they come to visit that this is where Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas came from.
Right.
Young cats don't really know that until they visually see it. So again, yeah, Indiana historical connotations equal blue blood, sure, but in today's age, it's not really about that. The transfer portal has changed things. The NIL era has changed things. So if you can be competitive and you know you have a commissioner that's going to back you at every turn, financially speaking, that is the only differentiation I see here. Perhaps Indiana does have significantly more money than West Virginia, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do know that a lot of universities, including Oklahoma State, were kind of to some degree out of the running for Darian DeVries at one point in time, primarily because he was bringing Tucker with him. So you have to pay the coach what he's worth because all the phenomenal things he did at Drake. And on top of that, you also have to pay one of the top transfers in the country that's going to be coming with him because it's his son. So I think a lot of universities could not afford to buy both the coach and the player. West Virginia could. So clearly there is some monetary value that West Virginia has that isn't necessarily even public.
Let's go to a break really quick, guys. We'll talk more about this next. Darian DeVries, by the way, in Oklahoma State too, and Steve Lutz have really good recruiting classes coming in. Yet another reason he probably shouldn't leave. Let's talk about it next. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be brought to you by, of course, Nissan, guys. We love Nissan around here. If you're not driving a Nissan, what are you doing? The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the also new Nissan 2025 Armada. Each week, our Locked On basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team led the National Player of the Year by candidate Cooper Flagg, who just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. The Duke Blue Devils are plus 434 points in ACC games. That's insane. The largest point differential by a power conference team in the league play since Kentucky in 53-54. That's 1953-54. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say, go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. Can't argue that. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the new all new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go for your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. It's segment 2. Did you bring a dew?
No, but I got a Red Bull. I mean, that's close, isn't it?
That works. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. It's Nissan is probably something I should explore a little bit more. I have an Infiniti G Series, but I do have lots of kids because my dad said growing up, Cody, when you get older, you got to be good at something. He did not specify what that something had to be, so I could perhaps use an Armada-sized vehicle with the children-inducing capabilities that I possess.
I probably need to get a Pathfinder because of my, the way I live my life. I've always been searching for my path in life.
There you go.
That's pretty decent. All right, man. So this is actually what the show was going to be about because it's the off season. And so we thought, well, this would be a fun topic, and I like you. I think you're really good at your job. By the way,
hold on. Here I was thinking that we were going to hit the Snoop and Nate Dogg. Hey. Don't TikTok dance every day. I thought
we can definitely talk about that.
Be about.
As a matter of fact, but before we do that, we got almost 400 people in here. Do me a favor, guys. Go check out Cody. Where can they find you?
Locked On Oklahoma State, and I do mix it up occasionally on the old ex Twitter sphere at Aldeo State.
Yeah, make sure you go check him out over there, guys. Super funny dude, keeps you locked into Big 12 and Oklahoma State content, and he does more. So, yeah. So, what did you think about not a TikTok ban, but a TikTok dancing ban, a TikTok dancing ban from Rich Rod?
I mean, I don't know, honestly. Like, I don't know how to feel about it per se. I feel like the verbiage in his tweet or his quote was pretty confusing, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't know if they're not allowed to participate in the higher than life or they're not allowed to TikTok while they do it. Like, I'm somewhat confused. All right. I'm not going to lie to you, but nonetheless, I actually do appreciate that Rich Rod is willing to be somewhat vocal about this, because this is typically a topic that nobody's willing to approach, right? Because you could have got canceled not too long back for having these simple conversations. And so I actually am appreciative of Rich Rod being open, upfront, and transparent about this, because it's part of life. People tend to forget that we look at them through a screen, right? We get hyped up, we hoot and holler and yell at the TVs, but they're kids. And what do kids do in college? They do fun, experimental things. That's part of life, is learning how to battle through adversity, AKA you have to get up for workouts and classes. Sometimes you don't want to. And for him to even be open about it, I think is pretty cool, actually.
I agree 100%, man. Pretty funny, though, overall, just Rich Rod. Listen, the last thing I expected Rich Rod coming back 17 years full circle is to talk about TikTok. And, I got limited on YouTube yesterday for actually talking about it, but you guys know what it is, right?
That's ridiculous.
A substance that is now legal, but apparently not allowed to be talked about on YouTube right now. So,
well, and I don't mean to derail, but we're talking a little bit about basketball, and obviously Pat McAfee had a massive hand in getting Rich Rod back. I would assume that Pat McAfee's not just a WV football guy. I would imagine that he's a true Mountaineer that bleeds your particular colors, right? So if he's all in on the NIL for football and compensation for coaches in football, I would assume that he has a hand, or at least has some buddies that are donors that are willing to kick in some massive dollar bills for basketball as well. So, again, I think Darian should stay. And as you had already mentioned, this recruiting class is good enough to convince him to stick around on top of whatever the NIL evaluations are.
You almost like you do this professionally. What a segue.
No, dude, the only thing I do professionally is scream into a microphone. And you know what? The biggest crazy part of words are hard for me. Okay. So this is a process.
As you can see,
let me go through it.
Stumbled a couple times in today's episode trying to read these things. It's what I get for not proofreading the read before we went where I did it. So I think West Virginia, what we were going to do was debate who has a better class, right? I think West Virginia has a great class. 3 4-star guys, McDonald's All-Americans, candidates, right? Not necessarily, but I mean, still, it's a very nice honor. Talk a little bit about the Oklahoma State class real quick and why you feel like it's such a good class, and then I'll fire back with ours.
Well, I think the biggest thing is this last year we hired Steve Lutz kind of late. He got in on the transfer portal kind of late. So we didn't necessarily get a whole bunch of shooters or even necessarily hoopers per se. We just got a bunch of athletes that were good defensively, and we were going to be a gritty team that just kind of found ways to win here and there. And we knew that coming into the year. This is a little bit different because about halfway through the season, we started using all of the offense through the big man, Abu Usman. And we have 2 big men coming in this next recruiting class. We have 3-star Mekhi Ragland out of Kansas, 6'10", 255 pounds. He is the quintessential bang bodies down low kind of guy that clearly Steve Lutz is looking for. And then most recently, we were able to steal a former Miami commit, Ben Ahmed. This is a 4-star individual coming over from Nigeria. He's 6'9", one classification has him at 300 pounds. Another service has him at 250. So let's split the difference. Let's say he's 6'9.5", 275. Is he going to take a little bit to get into game shape? Yeah, very likely. But at the same time, this accentuates what Steve Lutz is trying to do. Steve Lutz has a type of player, right? Yeah. And on top of that, the one thing that the Cowboys do not have this season that would have gone a long way, dating back to even the Javon Small conversation, is we do not have a shooter. Okay, we have a bunch of good athletes. We have some guys that can get to the rim. We have some guys that can dish it out, but we don't have pure shooters. We got 4-star shooting guard Ryan Crotty, who hit 142 three-pointers last year and shot 46.3% from beyond the arc. That is precisely, that is what we needed, and we haven't had it. Even going back to some of the Mike Boynton days, we had good players, we had good athletes, we had Moussa Cisse, Javon Small, just to name a couple, but we weren't able to score enough to win. So we obviously have to have the big man down low, if we've seen this year through Abu Usman, and he's got 2 6'10", 250 to 300-pound guys coming in. Plus, we have a spot-up shooter. Plus, we have a decent number of underclassmen that should be returning as well. That is why I do feel very confident in this recruiting class, because it's not late, right? We're not just grabbing athletes out of the portal and hoping that the grinding nature works out. We've got a big guy. We've got two big guys. Now we've got a pure spot-up, dead-eye shooter to go with some of the underclassmen. I feel pretty confident.
Let's go to a quick break, and then on the other side of this, I'll give my explanation why I think Darian DeVries, not only should he stay because of this recruiting class, why I think this recruiting class can take West Virginia to the next level. Stick around, guys. It's Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be also brought to you by Return on You. Guys, before NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, we know that, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Return on You, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing West Virginia. With Return on You, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to pay, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of West Virginia sports. All you got to do, download the Return on You app from the App Store and start backing West Virginia athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. You should join it now by downloading Return on You and supporting your favorite players. We have landed in segment 3 somehow, some way, guys. We got almost 600 folks in here watching the show. Cody, one more time, tell everybody where they can find you at.
Locked On Oklahoma State, at all day State on X, and I travel the country covering 7-on-7 for Prospect Sports, Epic Sports. So if you see me out there, I'm kind of hard to miss. Feel free to give me a holler, or throw a Mountain Dew at me. I might even catch it.
I like that. I've always got what I did there. I've always got Dusky on hand, as we know.
Yes, sir. So all right. So I broke down my class. Could you tell me, in your opinion, why do you think your class is not only going to be huge for West Virginia, but also big enough to potentially keep Darian on board in Morgantown, buddy?
Yeah. So Chester Frazier, who we brought over from Illinois, who was big reason that Sincere Harrison and Amani Hansberry came to West Virginia and have been so big at helping Javon and this squad get to where they are this year. They'll be back next year, but he is an elite recruiter, high school recruiter. And so we knew when he came, he was already involved for some guys that were for Illinois that really became into play for us here at West Virginia. And these are the guys. SoCal Academy, Trent McLean is a 6'9" shooting machine. Quick release, moves well. He's really good rebounder and a super athlete. One of the best players in the state of California, which is an elite basketball. It's a great basketball state, as we know. He's also a McDonald's All-American candidate. If you look at Braden Hawthorne, I think, he's another guy that I look at and is really excited about. I call him a Kevin Durant type player. Got a great skill set. He's got an over 7-foot wingspan. So, those are always great to have. They don't just grow on trees.
Right.
An elite rim protector, number one player in the state of West Virginia at Huntington Prep. And then Kelvin Odie, who was the guy that really they thought was going to make it to Illinois. He's an elite defender. He's also a 4-star guy. All these guys are 4-star guys. All of them ranked 190 or lower in the top 200 on Rivals. On 247, it's a little different, but they're all, I think, like if it's an ESPN 300, I think they're all in the top 150 on there. Like it varies, but they're all really good players. But Odie, probably the crowning jewel of the class, an elite defender, dynamic shooter, and an open court rim runner, a guy that is not as big as the other two. The other two are 6'7" and 6'9" respectively. This guy here is more probably going to be projected as a freshman 3-and-D, but he's going to develop into more. You add these three and you look at how Darian DeVries has really helped the two freshmen that have played a ton this year with this this version of the Mountaineers really have got those guys going, man, especially Jonathan Powell, who is one of the best spot up 3-point shooters in the conference as a true freshman. And so they've really shown the ability to be able to develop.
Well, I mean, it's all about relationships nowadays, relationships and development. And one of the, I would say, the cruxes of this whole portal NIL era is when you get the top tier freshmen, they're probably going to have to play, because if they don't, unfortunately, all you're doing is developing them to likely leave and go elsewhere. And in this crazy world of in-conference transfers, which I can't stand it, right? I've never been a big fan of it. I hate, like Javon Small, dude. I hate watching him put up a 25-30 burger against us and then have visions of, well, what could this team look like with him, right? Same goes for Musa Cisse. It's irritating watching these guys leave in general, especially when it's in conference. But yeah, dude, I feel like that West Virginia is good enough to make a run, especially into the Big 12 tournament, right? I'm watching my Cowboys get beat up pretty decent right now, but there's still a second half. And I love the idea that West Virginia could retain an individual like this. And imagine this for a storyline. If he does stay, you just beat a quote-unquote blue blood, Indiana, from stealing one of the hottest names in all of coaching. And I think that would be a big deal.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it would be, right? Especially if they're making a legit run at him. And I think from what I'm told by people close to that situation, that he's drawing closer to the heart of that conversation, along with 2 or 3 other guys. So I think he's going to fall within a top 4 or 5. I don't know how much deeper it'll go than that. Obviously, like somebody else said in the comments, the year that Darian DeVries has had, you beat Kansas in a home opener for the first time in 33 years. You beat Arizona. You beat Gonzaga. After you won 9 games last year, didn't return not one player from last year. Literally had to be rebuilt 1 through 13. Then you lose 35 points a game between Jaden Stone and Tucker DeVries inside of the first 8 games. Even today, 31 games in, your most efficient lineup is with Tucker DeVries 25 games ago. And so Javon, which just speaks to what Javon Small did, right? Like I said yesterday on the squad show. So, this coaching job is, in my opinion, one of the most elite coaching jobs I've seen, because we don't have nothing, man, outside of Javon Small that you would say could make a deep run or anything like that. I'm not saying we don't have good players. I'm saying that these players weren't necessarily supposed to be what they are of this iteration of this team. And somehow Darian DeVries has made it work against all odds.
Well, you had multiple X factors, right? And as if you have multiple X factors from a defensive perspective, it opens you up so much. But when teams can key on one player like Javon Small, it does limit your capabilities offensively as well. So, yeah, I think he's done an absolutely remarkable job. And even though the Big 12 is a little bit down this year, this is still the mother trucking Big 12, buddy.
That's right, baby.
You're still talking Houston and KU and Iowa State and Arizona and Texas Tech's typically a very good ball club. Baylor's typically a very good ball club.
Yeah.
I think
we're going to have something to say.
Proof is in the pudding, right? Yeah. As you have already said, what he's done with a depleted roster, having to change things mid-season and still be in a position to not only make a run at a Big 12 tournament, but obviously put yourself in a position to cause at least a little bit of chaos in the March Madness brackets.
Absolutely. Guys, make sure you check Cody out on Locked On Oklahoma State over there on YouTube. He's also on X. What's your ad over on X?
All Day O State. That's how much I'm on there.
All day.
All day.
Thank you guys for joining us, man. It's been fun. Like I said, guys, if you weren't here early in the show, we've added like 400 or 500 extra here late. So basically what it is there's a report out there that says Darian DeVries is in consideration. The top tier guys have all passed on the Indiana job, like the Mays, the guys like that. So they're on to the Brad Brownells, the Darian DeVries, the Mark Byingtons even is being mentioned. But I spoke to an Indiana beat writer earlier that said, hey, man, just want you to know, and we're going to do a show later, that his name popped up out of nowhere over the weekend and that there's more to it than just this report. So we'll just keep an eye on it, keep you updated like we do here. and we'll talk about it more later. Cody, thanks for coming on, man. This
Absolutely.
has been a blast, brother. Guys,
anytime,
thanks for,
my guy, anytime.
Yep. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia and Oklahoma State your first listens of the day. We got to ask you to do something else, though. Just one extra thing. Like, subscribe. If you're new around here, guys, hit that button, baby. Make sure the notifications are on. Last but not least, guys, Locked On College Basketball. It is March. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton do it big, guys. They want to make you the most educated college basketball fans around. Make sure you check them out over on Locked On College Basketball. And we'll see you on the next one, guys. For Cody, for me, I'm out of here.
Do it.